Welcome to a journey of self-discovery that might change how you communicate forever. Have you ever noticed how some men command respect without raising their voice? How they seem to possess a quiet authority that draws people in rather than pushing them away? The secret isn't in what they say, it's in what they choose not to say. Today we're exploring 7 phrases that truly intelligent men avoid like the plague. Not because they're afraid of speaking their minds, but because they've learned that certain words reveal more weakness than strength. These aren't just words, they're traps that can undermine your credibility in seconds. Let's dive deep into the mindset of men who speak less but influence more. Number 1. I know everything about this. Picture this. You're in a meeting and someone starts explaining a concept you're familiar with. Your first instinct might be to interrupt with, "I already know all this." But here's what's really happening. You're not displaying expertise. You're broadcasting insecurity. I once watched a seasoned executive listen patiently as a junior employee explained a basic marketing strategy. After the presentation, I asked him why he didn't just cut to the chase. His response was gold. Because I might learn something new about how a different generation sees the same problem. That's the difference between intelligence and ego. Intelligent men understand that knowledge isn't static. It evolves with perspective. Every conversation is an opportunity to deepen understanding, catch a nuance you missed, or simply practice the art of listening. When you say, "I know everything about this," you're essentially putting up a wall. You're telling the world that your mind is closed for business. And here's the kicker. The moment you stop learning is the moment you start becoming irrelevant. Smart men stay curious because they know that expertise isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions. Number 2, that could never work. There's something powerful about the word impossible. It feels definitive, logical, even protective. But when intelligent men hear "that could never work," they hear something else entirely. Fear dressed up as reason. I knew a manager who shot down every creative idea with variations of this phrase. "We've tried that before. The market isn't ready. That's too risky." He thought he was being practical, but what he was really doing was building walls around his own limitations. Meanwhile, his competitor took one of those impossible ideas and turned it into a $1 million revenue stream. Here's the truth. When you declare something impossible, you're not describing reality. You're describing your current understanding of reality. And that understanding might be incomplete. Intelligent men don't say, "that could never work." Instead, they ask, "what would it take to make this work?" They break down barriers instead of building them. They see obstacles as puzzles to solve, not walls to hide behind. The difference between possible and impossible is often just creative thinking and persistent effort. Number 3, it's not my problem. Few phrases destroy credibility faster than "it's not my problem." On the surface, it might seem like clear boundary setting, but what you're really communicating is that you lack ownership mentality, one of the most valuable traits in any leader. Here's what I've observed. Men who constantly deflect responsibility also deflect opportunity. When you push away problems, you push away the chance to be seen as a solution-oriented person. I remember a project that was falling apart. While everyone else was pointing fingers, one team member stepped up and said, "I don't care whose fault this is. Let's figure out how to fix it." Guess who got promoted 6 months later? Intelligent men understand that taking ownership, even of problems that aren't entirely their fault, demonstrates character. It shows you're the kind of person who makes things better, not someone who makes excuses. When something goes wrong, instead of asking who's to blame, ask what can we learn? Instead of saying not my problem, say how can I help solve this? That shift in language reveals a shift in mindset that separates leaders from followers. Number 4, I don't need anyone's help. There's a dangerous myth in our culture that successful men are self-made islands who never ask for assistance. This belief doesn't make you strong. It makes you stupid. I once met a business owner who was drowning in stress, working 80-hour weeks, and slowly destroying his health and relationships. When I suggested he delegate or hire help, his response was immediate. "I don't need anyone's help. I can handle this myself." 6 months later, he had a heart attack at 45. Here's what intelligent men know. Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. It shows you understand the value of other people's expertise and that you're secure enough in yourself to admit you don't have all the answers. The most successful men I know are also the most collaborative. They build teams, seek mentors, and aren't too proud to learn from people younger, less experienced, or different from themselves. Your network is your net worth, but only if you're humble enough to tap into it. Number 5, I'm too old to change. Age is not a limitation, it's an excuse. When you say, "I'm too old for this," you're not describing your capabilities. You're describing your mindset. I know a 68-year-old man who learned to code and launched a successful app. I also know 30-year-olds who act like their learning days are behind them. The difference isn't age, it's attitude. Every time you say, "I'm too old," you're choosing stagnation over growth. You're deciding that your past defines your future. But intelligent men understand that as long as you're breathing, you're capable of evolving. The world is changing faster than ever. The skills that got you here won't necessarily get you there. The men who thrive are the ones who stay curious, adaptable, and open to new possibilities, regardless of their age. Your experience is an asset, not an anchor. Use it as a foundation to build something new, not as a reason to stop building altogether. Number 6, I'll get to it eventually. Eventually is where dreams go to die. It's the graveyard of good intentions and the enemy of achievement. When you say, "I'll do it later," you're making a bet that you'll have more time, energy, or motivation in the future. But here's the reality check. You won't. The demands on your time will only increase, and that burst of motivation you're waiting for rarely comes. I once met a man who spent years saying he'd write a book when he retired. When retirement came, he realized he'd lost the passion, the sharp insights, and the energy that would have made the book special. His eventually became never. Intelligent men understand that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They create momentum with imperfect action. The difference between dreamers and achievers isn't talent or luck. It's the willingness to start before you feel ready. Number 7. This is just who I am. The most limiting belief you can hold is that you're a finished product. When you say, "This is just who I am," you're not describing your nature. You're choosing your prison. Your personality isn't set in stone. Your habits aren't permanent. Your patterns aren't unchangeable. What you call just who you are is often just who you've been, and there's a huge difference. I used to be the guy who avoided confrontation at all costs. I told myself I'm just not a confrontational person. But that wasn't my nature. That was my fear. When I realized that, I started practicing difficult conversations. It was uncomfortable, but it changed my life. Intelligent men don't use their past as an excuse for their present. They use it as data for their future. They ask, "Who do I want to become?" instead of, "Who have I always been?" Growth isn't comfortable, but neither is staying stuck. The discomfort of change is temporary, but the regret of staying the same lasts forever. Number, the power of thoughtful speech. Here's what ties all 7 of these phrases together. They're all forms of intellectual surrender. They're ways of closing doors instead of opening them. They reveal fixed mindsets instead of growth mindsets. Intelligent men understand that words have power, not just to communicate, but to shape reality. What you say doesn't just reflect who you are, it influences who you become. Every conversation is a choice. You can choose words that limit or words that liberate. You can choose phrases that close possibilities or open them. You can choose to sound smart or to actually be smart. The difference is profound. When you eliminate these 7 phrases from your vocabulary, something remarkable happens. You start attracting better opportunities. People begin to see you as someone who gets things done, rather than someone who makes excuses. You become known as a problem solver, rather than a problem identifier. Your words become tools for building, instead of walls for hiding. Remember, intelligent men don't just think before they speak. They choose their words like they're choosing their future. Because in many ways, they are. If this resonated with you, here's what I want you to do. Choose one of these 7 phrases and commit to eliminating it from your vocabulary for the next 30 days. Notice how it changes, not just how others respond to you, but how you think about challenges and opportunities. And if you found value in this message, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more insights on building the mindset of success. And remember, your words shape your world. Choose them wisely.